Okay, let's get into some more details of the features of the Excalibur EX-21. We'll start out with the on-off switch. The on-off switch is located up front on the upper arm. It's a fairly small switch, but I haven't had any trouble getting it to turn off. I do use a foot switch, so I always leave this in the on position anyway. The on-off switch is covered by a plastic shroud, which, as we learned from the DeWalt scroll saw, that's a really good idea because sawdust has a tendency to get down into the contacts and cause problems. So on the DeWalt, we tended to cover this switch with tape, so they went ahead and took care of that issue for us there. So on-off switch, no problems there. Seems to be a quality switch. Now let's talk about the variable speed knob, which is also up front on the upper arm, right behind the on-off switch. Again, it's a fairly small knob, but it has a good feel to it, good tactile feel. There's a little resistance as you turn it. I generally, on the DeWalt, always ran my saw at top speed. That seemed to be the sweet spot for me on that saw, and I would generally only slow it down when I cut thinner stock. On the Excalibur so far, and I may change my mind on this as time goes by, I'm running this at about 80%, maybe 85% of its maximum speed, and for this particular saw that seems to be the sweet spot for me. That's where I'm seeing the least vibration and still being able to cut fast enough that it doesn't seem to slow me down too much. Now, I have found the Excalibur cuts slower than either one of my DeWalts, and that's not a big problem for me. I'm not a production cutter and I don't tend to cut real fast anyway, but there is a noticeable difference, not a bad difference, but a noticeable difference between the speed of the two saws. The next item I want to look at is the dust blower. Again, it's a typical gooseneck style dust blower that lets you point the air any direction you want. It is almost long enough to get it in front of the blade to blow the dust backwards, but not quite. But I know Ray over at Seiko does sell an extender for this, and that's something that I might be looking into myself. I like to have just a slight backward, I like this to point just slightly backwards so it blows the dust away from me instead of towards me. And the way right now it sets, I generally have it pointing almost straight down, which is not a big problem, but something to be aware of. This could be 2 or 3 links longer and it would be a little better, but not bad. Have no problems there. Now let's talk about probably the most important feature of any scroll saw, and that's the blade clamp mechanism and the blade tensioning mechanism. This is a fairly unique design to the Excalibur, and that is that they use this little lever at the front of the parallel arms to release the tension on the blade. You don't really have an adjustment of the tension up here. You simply have tension on, tension off. When I purchased, or the first time I saw the Excalibur, this interested me because I was really wondering how often you would have to go to the back of the saw where there's a knob, and I'll show you that in a minute, and readjust the tension as you opened and closed this blade holder. I was concerned that if you didn't get the blade in the clamps in exactly the same place every time, you would be constantly reaching back there to adjust the tension. So far that has absolutely not been the case. I've released and re-tensioned the blade several times, and I've not had to touch that tensioning knob in the back even once since I originally adjusted it to my preference. So that's not been a problem at all, and I'm rapidly finding that I really like this tension lever up front. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of the tension, and I actually thought it was going to do just the opposite. Again, you pull the lever to the front, that releases the tension. You have the T-style thumb screws here on the side. You loosen the thumb screw. The Excalibur has a lifting arm that will lift and stay in the up position. So you simply reach under the saw and lift it up. Now, when I first started doing this, I had a tendency to take my finger right here where the parallel arms are and lift up right there, and I was starting to irritate the side of my finger a little bit. And it didn't take me too long to realize that I need to grab under here with my full palm underneath the bottom arm of the saw to lift it up. Again, not a big deal, just something I had to get used to. So you can lift the upper arm up, it stays up without any assistance. You have a bottom thumb knob underneath the table just like this one. You simply loosen that and pull the blade out. When you're ready to reinstall the blade, let me go ahead and take this one out. I like to leave the arm in the up position, go ahead and insert the blade and make sure it's on the back part of the clamp. I tighten it down and let the blade just hang here like this. Then I bring the arm down through the hole in the table, go ahead and clamp it to the bottom thumb screw, and like any saw, it's going to take you a little bit of time to get used to the clamping system, but after just a short period of time you'll be able to get that blade clamped into the bottom without looking. Once you get the blade clamped in, you simply move the tensioning lever back, and the tension for me so far has come back nearly perfect every time. I have yet to be able to, or have to go back and adjust the tensioning knob. Here is the tensioning knob on the back of the saw that I've been talking about, and again, you may have to change this when you go to some of the very small blades. You might have to release the tension a little bit to keep from snapping those blades. The knob has a little white mark on it where you can kind of keep a general reference of where it's set at, and I moved mine to a little bit tighter than the factory setting was, just because I like to run the blades a little tighter than normal, and I have not touched this since. Now once I start using some of my jigsaw blades, some of the really small blades, I might have to back off on this tension a little bit, but so far it's been a set it one time and leave it alone, which was a pleasant surprise. Now I want to talk about an issue I had with the saw right out of the box that I thought was a problem at first, until I did a little research online and found out that I just simply didn't have the saw adjusted correctly. And that is, I like a saw with very minimal front to back movement of the blade. These parallel link arm saws all move the blade back and forth just a little bit, but I like it to be minimal, which makes it a much less aggressive cutting saw, but it also gives you the opportunity to cut much finer detail work without having to worry about the movement of the blade breaking your pieces. When I first got this saw and turned it on, and I'll show you if I can get close enough here, a couple ways that I check to see the front to back movement is you can take a white piece of wood or a white piece of paper and put it beside the blade and look at the blade from the front or from the side of the saw, and just watch the line that produces as it's running across this white piece of wood. And you can see it, if it's moving back and forth very much, you'll see the line begin to blur. You can actually see the back and forth movement. And when I first took the saw out of the box, I did have a considerable amount of blade movement, almost 1/8 of an inch, which I wasn't very pleased with. I had heard that this saw was adjustable, and one of the things that I've heard is that you adjust the parallel of the upper and lower arm with the tension adjustment knob in the back. So I started out trying that, and I really wasn't having a lot of good luck getting it to where I wanted it. So I did a Google search and I found a post where they talked about adjusting the motor to take out this front to back movement, and I'll show you that here in just a second.